This video, I'm going to be sharing with you more on the fourth density shift that is happening right now, how you can accelerate the process and then get to a totally new level of consciousness. Welcome back to another video. My name is Aaron and I help people expand their consciousness. Now in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you that of understanding more about the fourth density shift that is happening right now, that has been happening for a while. Explain to you exactly what that is and how you can move through it in an easy way. Maybe you felt it, maybe you've even seen it. More and more people are waking up than ever before. There are more people having spiritual awakenings. There are more people waking up to just understanding more about how reality works, how their thoughts correlate with what they experience, understanding that a lot of the structures that are in place, whether you call it government, political, whatever you call it, aren't necessarily working. And that is causing many people on the planet to wake up right now. And maybe you've noticed it in your life. Maybe, most likely if you watch my channel at all, then you're already there. And you've seen and maybe even noticed that a couple years ago, there were a lot less people into this kind of information. But more and more people are waking up to it. That is because there is a density shift that is happening on the planet. That is one of the main reasons that most of us chose to be here right now, because of this density shift. Maybe consciously we don't remember this, but at a deeper point of view, at a deeper higher self point of view, if we were to get down to our subconscious or a higher self, whatever name we want to give it, we would see that the main reason we're here right now is to go through this collective shift in consciousness that is happening right now. And what I want to share with you is, first off, just before we even get into it, what is the fourth density? What is the fourth density? A lot of people call it also the fifth dimension. I'll explain fourth density or fifth dimension in the easiest way that I can to make it simple for you so that you understand what I'm talking about here. Now, when we talk about that of fourth density is about understanding that we are moving into a new way of being. Third density is what we were living in prior to going through this shift about 20, 30 years ago. Third density, think of that as more so the solar plexus. If you look at this, you know what I'll do is I'll put like a chart right here. You see the chart? It's not a chart, but it's the it's like a chakra thing. When you're looking at this chakra chart right here, you'll see first chakra, second chakra, third chakra, fourth chakra. Think of it like the grounding, the root chakra, then you got the sacral chakra, then you got the willpower, the solar plexus, and then you got the fourth chakra, which is the heart. What we are doing is we are moving from the third chakra into the fourth chakra. We're moving from the third density into the fourth density. The third density is a lot about matter, about this physical structure that we're in, identifying with our bodies, with that of making things happen, the willpower, control. These are all aspects of the third density. And what we are now moving into is fourth density. Fourth density is when we move more so into the heart, more so into that of understanding that things are less physical than we priorly thought. This is where reality becomes a somewhat form of dream as well, because then things become more flexible. So we move from identifying so much with our ego, so much with our physical form in the third density, into the fourth density, where we start to see that things that we thought were separations, like the ego structures that we have, we realize that we're all connected. We realize more about how reality works. We realize that we can start to connect to each other, and that collectively how we connect to each other is going to determine which realities we experience in our life. So this is what happens when we go from the third density into the fourth density. Those are kind of an easy way of understanding it. Now, even when you look at this, let's also understand the fifth dimension. Now, density and dimension is a different thing. Now, the third dimension, we could say, is also similar to what we experience through our senses. Third dimension, a lot of times, is very similar to when we look at that of the third density, when we look at some of the characteristics in it. Now, the third dimension you could think of as our form. The fourth dimension is time. So think of it like the third dimension is a 3D object. It's identification with form. And what happens is the fourth dimension is the element of time. So it's many different sequences of that. So the fourth dimension is time. Now, the fifth dimension is more of a unity consciousness. The fifth dimension is where we start to come together as one, when we stop looking at all the parts and we start seeing the whole. The fifth dimension is unconditional love and bliss. The fifth dimension is a higher state of consciousness and a higher state of awareness that we all are able to connect to right now. Now, what is happening on the planet right now is collectively, some people a little bit quicker than others, but in general, there's this bubble of this transformation that's happening right now where we are moving into what is called fourth density or the fifth dimensional levels of consciousness. So what we're beginning to realize now is that not only do our thoughts correlate with what we experience, but what you put out comes back to you, because what you do to someone else, you do to another aspect of yourself, because we're all connected in this cosmic web. So because of that, we then are becoming with more awareness. We're becoming more mindful of this. So this fourth density shift, fifth dimensional shift, it is happening right now. Sometimes people look at this and they think, oh, this will happen way in the future. It is happening. It is happening right at this moment. And we are already moved or moving into that of the fourth density. I've heard some people say that we're already moved into it completely. If you look and you want more material on this, look up the Law of One, which is called the raw materials as well. It's some of the most profound channeled material from the 70s and the 80s. I think it was the 70s and the 80s, but from that time. And it talks about this fourth density, third to fourth density shift. It talks about understanding these different rays, which are the different color chakras. You can think of the yellow ray moving into the green ray. Right now, that's what we're doing as a planet. And it is the main reason that almost everyone is here, whether they're aware of it or not. That's why there's 7 billion people here on the planet right now, and everyone's trying to incarnate here, because there's this collective shift going on right now, and people just want to become a part of it. You could also look at Dolores Cannon's work, which is called and comes from QHHT, Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique, where they put people in the deepest levels of brainwave activity, and what they do is they ask them questions from their higher self, or they'll ask, why did this person incarnate? Why did I incarnate at this time? Why did I have this relationship with my mom or my dad or whatnot? The reason being, the thing is thousands and thousands of people have said that don't know each other, that are just being interviewed. Her books are transcripts of these interviews with these people. And there's thousands and thousands of people that say the same thing. Came here for this shift in consciousness. Came here for this raise in vibration. Came here for this shift. This is something that is happening at a grander level. It's just that we don't consciously always remember this. We're like, well, this is real. I'm worried about my job. I'm worried about this. There's something greater happening here. Now, it doesn't mean you just give away your job and you throw it away. But what it does mean is you become aware of the different levels of consciousness and how you can move through them. So what I'm going to be sharing with you is how you move through these different densities, how you in a way raise your vibration to a higher state of consciousness, and the best way to go about that. Now, I've shared a lot of videos before on raising vibration. Now, when it comes to us raising up these different levels of vibration, what we must learn to do is we must learn to transcend them by completing them. So in general in life, have you ever had it to where there's a certain lesson that maybe you didn't learn? And because you didn't learn it, you kept finding more and more things happening to show you that lesson? Because in a way, there's a certain life plan that we want to go through in our life that we determine before we come into our life. It's a general blueprint. We have free will. But the idea is that, I want to learn this lesson. I want to learn this. I want to learn this. It doesn't always have to be bad, too. It could also be good. But the idea is that there's certain lessons that we want to learn, and we will repeat that lesson until we complete that lesson. So, for example, it could be you always attract a certain type of boyfriend or girlfriend, and they treat you a certain way. And until you stand up for yourself and you learn that lesson, you learn how to remain in your power, you may continue to attract the same boyfriend or girlfriend. Even though the face has changed, the energy may remain the same. You may find that you keep going through this pattern of having a certain type of job and then losing your job. And it may be because there's something there that it's trying to show you, but until you become aware of it, you will keep repeating it. You will repeat it over and over again. This is why the key is, how can you see in your life what lessons you can learn? Now, it doesn't mean that you're always being tested, but it does mean you become aware of the signs that you are getting from your higher self and the signs you're getting from this larger stream of consciousness. Because your higher self will give you that sign. Recently, I had this thing, I won't go too far into it. I went into it in Instagram, IG live that I talked about it. But there was this thing where I put out a video that was talking about a certain type of teaching that I agreed with, but at the same time I was kind of picking it apart and showing a different alternative. I knew before I put out the video that I kind of shouldn't put out a video because I never want to separate people from any type of teaching. I want to always include, and I always want to, it's a different way of going about it. But I kind of knew that before I put out this video. I put out this video and I had a weird feeling about it. I put it out and it got good reviews from people. Like, people really liked the video, but it also triggered some people that really believed in this style of teaching. That I was kind of showing that it is true, but here's a different way of going about it. And it was just something I knew I didn't feel that great about. And I kind of felt like I should have taken down the video, but I didn't. Then what happens is it escalated to something else happening that then I had to deal with. And I knew that these two things were correlated, but what I decided to do is I decided to change it. I took down that video. I took down a whole bunch of other videos as well, just to kind of prove to myself that I got the lesson. And what that ended up showing me is that I could let go, and that I could become aware of it, let go, and now I no longer have to repeat that type of pattern. I've learned that lesson. There's also been times where I was giving away my power when I was younger, and once I started to take my power back, I never had to experience the same type of people in my life again, whether that's my ex-stepmom. You've heard my story with having an abusive ex-stepmom, and then bringing in the people in my life that reflected the same type of energy, even though after 15 years old I never have to see her again. I would still meet people in my life that had a similar energy, like my old manager at the job that I had years ago. It was almost the same personality, but in a different body. And what I did is I learned how to complete that. I took back my power and I related to it differently. And now it went away, and I've never had to deal with someone like that again, because I've completed it. You see, the key to moving up these densities is to learning the lessons and completing them. To be aware of what they are trying to show you, of what you are learning from it, because as you become aware of it, you can then complete it and then let it go. Now, if you look at the first chakra, the root chakra, that many times is related to that of survival mode. So you look at areas in your life where you feel like you're surviving, where you feel this neediness, and you become aware of it and you learn how to transcend it. Now remember what Einstein said, you cannot solve a problem from the same level of thinking the problem was created. Many times to move up these scales, what you have to do is you have to observe it, be aware of it, and then just let it go. You don't have to like pile on some new idea. But it's about being aware of it. And you move from there, you move to the Sacral Chakra, which can have to do with inner relationships with other people, starting to become self-aware. There's also different densities they talk about in the raw materials, where the first dimension would be like rocks, the elements, because they don't necessarily have the level of awareness that maybe a human has. And then from the first density, the second density would be more like animals. It would be more like cats or dogs, or they're somewhat aware, but it's not as much of a self-awareness as some other animals, or like humans or dolphins, for example. Then you get into the third density. Third density is where we become self-aware. We start to become aware of ourselves, empowered, and this is when we then start to learn more about how we can navigate through life, how we can focus in a certain direction and achieve what we want. So there's all different lessons within here. But the key is to just be aware of what you are learning, because your higher self will show you what that is. There'll be certain things and certain patterns that you have that continue to repeat themselves. And if you want the most powerful meditation that I've ever made, it's on completing the past, so you don't have to repeat it. It's in the top of the description box below. I highly recommend you listen to it for 21 days to get the maximum benefit out of it. And after that 21 days, you will be a different person. You will let go of the old patterns, read the comments in that meditation to see what is possible. It's a YouTube video, and let's do it for 21 days. So it's the completing the past meditation. Now, everything I'm sharing with you right now is about this collective shift in consciousness that is happening. As time goes forward, there will be structures that break down. There will be political structures that break down, old financial systems that break down. It's a part of tearing down the old, which is naturally falling down, and then we can build the new. But you can't build the new on top of another sandcastle. That's why the old sandcastle has to kind of crumble. Now that will be happening over the next 15, 20, 30 years, however long that it takes, because we're going through this shift in consciousness. But at the same time, the key for you is to be aware of this And then to be aware of how you can let go of these lessons, how you can learn as you go up, how you can become more self-aware, and then how you can more so exist in this connection with everyone else in your life. Understand that we're all connected. This love vibration is about seeing the connectedness between us. It's about understanding how you can be who you naturally are. Instead of having and doing of the third density type understanding, having and doing of trying to become something else, it's about being who you naturally are. And the way you do that is by doing what you are passionate about. As cliche as it sounds, it is the fastest way of raising your vibration. It is the fastest way of getting guidance from your higher self. It is the fastest way of getting to your goals, is following your passion. Because your passion is your body telling you this is what you're meant to be doing. So start to set the intention for what your passion is. Start to understand how you can add value to other people with your passion. That combined together is very powerful. And one of the other characteristics that in the raw materials they talk about is that of being of service. So being of service, 51% of service. It means more than half of you has this understanding that we're connected. That what you put out, you get back. So what you do to someone else, you do to yourself. And as long as you're not just doing things to take from other people, you can then start to remain in this more giving mentality. Doesn't mean you have to be Mother Teresa. But what it does mean is that you start to understand this correlation between everyone that's around you. You start to realize that you are connected to everyone else. You have this general intention of adding value. And that helps with this whole process as well. And when you tap into it, it's almost like the universe wants to help you. It's something that I've called outer intention before, or that's also called outer intention. When you have this intention of adding value, the universe wants more to come through you. It almost gives you more energy because it sees that you're doing something good with it. So in general, there's this collective shift in consciousness happening. The quicker you learn the lessons in your life, the more you can complete them and not repeat them. Listen to the meditation that I shared with you. That's right below in the top of the description box, the Completing the Past meditation for 21 days. Watch how your life changes. And you'll start to notice that you start to exist in a higher vibrational state of consciousness, which is full of love and which is who you naturally are. So, something else I'll be doing is more live Q&As on Instagram. So if you want to interact with me there, you could do so. Also, I post 2 times a day. I post videos there, so you'd also get that as well. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed this video. Feel free to like this video if you liked it. Subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the notification here so that you can see the daily vids that I do. That's the way YouTube does things now, is you actually have to hit that button to see the daily videos. And other than that, as always, peace, much love, and namaste.